Well, hello then, I do hope you're all well. Now wondering why the silly hat. Well, it's quite an unusual situation, because my wife and my daughter have decided on December the 1st, first time ever. She's one of these where she'll do this maybe a day or two before Christmas Eve, and then a couple of days after Christmas Day, she's putting up the Christmas tree. Getting into the festive spirit early, which is nice to see. Well, she's digging it all out. She's whipped out all these Christmas hats. She said, "Here, stick this on your napper for your vlog." So I've had my orders. Anyway, I noticed last week that you all seem to have enjoyed the video with James O'Brien and Theo Usherwood when they talk about well, they pour over the coals of what is the absolute shambolic PMQs and non-answers, should we say? You know, where Keir will ask a question, Bodge will think of he's said another question and answer that question, which is totally irrelevant. So I don't bother with it, as you know. But anyway, I notice you all seem to enjoy listening to the conversation and hearing the pearls of wisdom from Theo Usherwood. So we're going to do it again over this week's PMQs, and what it basically is about is something I didn't know about until the very first question that Keir Starmer asked, and I have no idea what this is. It was just out of the blue for me. But I'll tell you why it's so important after, so enjoy.
Theo, well done. You got it. You were dead right on the
Christmas parties.
Yeah, well, actually, you said it would be Jenny Harry's. He didn't mention that, did he?
No, he didn't. No, but he did mention Christmas parties, and I've just found on the website, and you can see it. I've put it up on my Twitter if you want to have a look at it, because this is the rule which Keir Starmer is relying on. So you have rules which you cannot break because they are rules, and you can face criminal sanctions for breaking them.
Yes.
And then you have guidance where there is some wriggle room to not abide by the guidance and not face any penalties. And until now, and you heard it there from the Prime Minister, all guidance was followed, and you've heard it from Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, no rules were broken. And it's essentially the Matt Hancock defence from last June, that because he was having his affair in the workplace, there was guidance around social distancing. Had that happened outside of the workplace, he would have broken the rules. So the argument from number 10...
So we could have had a party here.
This is where it gets more complicated.
We didn't have a party, and this is Party Central.
We shouldn't have had a party.
I know, we didn't have one.
A Christmas party, because there is a separate clause in the rules which Keir Starmer has dug out, which says, although there are exemptions for work purposes, you must not have a work Christmas lunch or party where that is primarily social activity and is not otherwise permitted by the rules in your tier.
If memory serves, the Sun newspaper got into trouble for having a party, a Christmas party, on their own premises, which makes it interesting that it's their arch rival, the Daily Mirror, that's broken this story this morning.
So the only defence that you could possibly have, that I'm thinking about, that you could have at this time, is that you have a Christmas party, and then you say, well, actually, we're not going to make it a massive Christmas party with all of everything that goes with having a big Christmas party, but we're going to make it a sort of internal networking event where you can get together and you can exchange ideas from the year that you've just had, looking forward to maybe a blue sky meeting where you talk about possibly what ideas you've got coming up in the new year, and maybe there might be a drink there and a slight bit of socialising, but it's not the primary activity. That can only be the possible defence. The second, and that's why Keir Starmer's gone on it, and it was exactly why I said before.
So he thinks this one's going to run then?
Yes, because it speaks to a new, and of course Ian Blackford, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, made the same point.
And he also seemed rattled, didn't he, Johnson?
Yeah, he made the same point. It's one rule for everybody else, and then it's one rule for the government. The other interesting, and I've just been sent this, so you just...
don't forget that when they break the rules, they try and pass legislation to rip the rulebook up, as Jacob Rees-Mogg attempted shortly before being held to account by the same rulebook.
Now, one of the Prime Minister's and the Conservative Party's main manifesto pledges at the last election was 40 new hospitals.
Yes.
So Keir Starmer referred to a document which has just landed with me now, where he said, well, actually, within within the government's own document, they're saying that refurbished hospitals can count as new hospitals.
Refurbished.
Yes, so
excellent. I'm moving house then at Christmas.
So here we go.
Repainting the kitchen.
Describing the government commitment on new hospitals. Existing 8 schemes that would not confirm funding under previous governments should not be referred to as part of the government's 40 new hospitals manifesto commitment. When describing the wider government programme, they should be described as part of the government's commitment to build 48 hospitals by 2030, the biggest hospital building programme in a generation. When described, they should be described as part of the government's commitment, and it goes on. Together, existing schemes, that will mean 48 hospitals built over the next decade, the biggest hospital programme in a generation. A whole new hospital site on a new site or current NHS land, either a single service of consolidation on a new site. So basically, if you're refurbishing a hospital, that counts as a new hospital.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister comes back and he says, well, we don't want to build on Greenbelt land.
Right. I.e., we're going to build on the building
existing hospitals, so we're not going to go out
hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had some bad ones lately. I'm not sure that was the worst. Didn't Beth Rigby get suspended from Sky News for going to a Christmas party, or is that a different?
That was a party, but that was, it wasn't in the workplace.
Right.
And it wasn't a Christmas party, I don't think.
No. It was a Christmas party. No, was it a birthday party? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, it is a very, very interesting line of attack, isn't it? One rule for them and another rule for us. Speaking of which, the convivial and fraternal spirit must have run out because Jacob Rees-Mogg was wearing a face mask.
He was wearing a face mask. There were a couple of Conservative MPs, a few Conservative MPs, however, who weren't wearing a face mask. I'm looking at David Davis.
Some might have
the
exemptions.
MP for Halton Price and Howden isn't wearing a face mask.
But he's not speaking, though, is he?
He's not speaking.
No.
So you don't have to wear a face mask when you're speaking.
Of course.
But when you're sitting down...
Imagine today of all days, you just think, oh, sack it. I'm not convinced by the science. I prefer to listen to Scooby-Doo and Brexit hardman Steve Baker when it comes to matters of public health. But today I think I'll just wear my mask and stop being such a silly old goat. But no, some of them still not wearing masks. Sorry, Theo, continue. You may have finished, actually. I didn't interrupt you then. Crikey, that was amazing. I was actually a natural conversation where Theo finished speaking and I started. I just presumed, given our history together, that I'd been interrupted.
There was just one other bit.
It's more like it.
Just one other bit. Because under the definitions of a new hospital, according to this NHS document, a major refurbishment and alteration of all but building frame or main structure, delivering a significant extension to useful life, which includes major or visible changes to the external structure. So as long as you don't, if you want to build a new hospital, as long as you don't pull down the sort of frame of the hospital structure and you refurbish it, then that's a new hospital.
Right, well, Roy in York's been in touch. He's just put some new tyres on his car.
New car.
So congratulations to Roy on his lovely shiny new car just in time for Christmas. Theo, many thanks indeed.
One more. Lee, I'm just looking... I thought that was Lee Anderson.
You're looking out for the people not wearing masks. You need to be a little bit careful, just as one does on public transport, because some people may have valid exemptions, but some people, of course, may not. And you would think that today... Jacob Rees-Mogg is probably wearing a mask to hide his shame, but I could be wrong. Possibly he's doing it because he's run out of convivial and fraternal spirit. And I should also stress again, having a lot of fun at Jacob's expense, because it's so easy, that it may well turn out that the investigation into his alleged misdemeanours comes to nothing. It doesn't really matter, because, of course, if it comes back and he is guilty, then... oh, no, they can't do that, can they? I was going to say they probably passed legislation to rip up the rule book and give him a free pass, but they tried that with Owen Paterson, a project of which he was himself in charge. 12:31 is the time. Amelia Cox is here now with your headlines.
Well, yeah, it was very, very interesting. Now, as I say, when it came to the very first question, at the time, I didn't know what was this about. So I was really, really interested to see what Theo would have to say. And after he'd said what was said and whatnot, I thought, right, I'll listen to the rest of the show, because he was going to ask, do you care? But then he received a message from a guy who basically said, now, James, I don't normally agree with you on a lot of things, but the one thing I do know is that you will hold this absolute shambolic government to account on this. Because, and he talked about the situation where he didn't go to see his 52-year-old brother at last year's Christmas party because he wanted to follow the rules and the guidelines that were set. He finished off by saying, My little baby brother is no longer with us anymore. I will never see them again. And James said, I feel incredibly guilty. I wasn't really sure whether this would be that much important, but it clearly is. And when I first saw this, heard this question and what was actually happening, my first thought was, that was a month after me and my family buried my dad. And I sacrificed the last year of my dad's life, where he was compos mentis. He was suffering badly with dementia and Parkinson's, and he was basically just withering away. And my last memory of him will always be seeing him laid in that hospital bed, barely able to have the strength to lift his neck up to look at me, and he had that blank stare as if to say, who are you? Don't know who you are. My mum tried her best to say, yeah, he knows who you are, but I saw that vacant stare. It was just a look as if to say, don't know who you are. And that'll always be my long-lasting memory. I remember in March 2020, should I say, I pulled up outside my mum and dad's house with my mum's birthday card, and I said, I'll meet you in the car, because this was all fresh, and I was, because I couldn't live with myself knowing if I'd have passed COVID to my dad and finished him off, I would never forgive myself. And I was hoping against all hopes that this Winston Churchill wannabe would be the Winston Churchill that he's always wanted to be, and not this Wurzel Churchill, this bumbling cockwomble that he's always been. And as the weeks progressed into months, and the months progressed into months, I could see the writing were on the wall, up until the point where I received a phone call from my brother saying, you better come up, it doesn't really matter now, he's not far off from the end, and I must warn you, what you'll see will shock you. This is a man who did the Pennine Way in a weekend years ago, as strong as an ox, and he was skin and bone on the bed. And part of the brain had gone to where he forgotten how to swallow. And I sacrificed the last year of his life. Even though he was frail and weak, he was still compos mentis, and I sacrificed that. And these fuckers were having a ruse in number 10, as though it doesn't matter, because, like as it says, when it comes to our bumbling cockwomble, our Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson, the rules do not apply to him. And it's the same with his dad. Remember that tale with Ian Lee when he was doing I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, where he was doing the bit of being the Prime Minister? Stanley Johnson was doing, I'm following no rules. The rules aren't for the likes of me. So it just shows you the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And that's the reason why I was quite angry this morning. I know you can see me looking, so I'm so laid back, I'm horizontal, but I was spitting feathers. I missed out on the last year seeing my dad, even though fragile, and let's put it this way, last conversation I had with him was I was sat in the room with my dad, and I think he asked me 5 times, what's the name of your wife again? I've been married with her for about 20-odd years. So you can tell he was getting frail, and mine weren't there. But I could still hold a conversation with him. My lasting memory will always be him laid in that bed in the living room, just skin and bone, and didn't even know who I was. So that's why shouldn't let this go. Should never let this go. These people are laughing at us. So I'll leave it there because getting a bit emotional. So I shall leave the video here, and until the next time, I shall bid you farewell. So take care.